Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the country or in the world. And we're live. Stephen is desperately pinging us in the background. He's not with us today, but he's saying, "Oh, I can only see the background. I can." Stephen, there's a bit of a delay. It takes a while to catch up. That's how the live stream works. That's just in case Rob suddenly loses control of himself and starts spouting something that should not be broadcast. I don't think that would ever happen, Rob. He seems way too calm.
We'll see how we go.
Exactly. Hi to Rob Jones from Yellowfin and Montana Mendy as well. It's just us three this week, isn't it? Hi, team. And today we are doing the Analytics Coffee Club. That's actually almost too much for me to say this time in the morning because I do have my coffee, but it is 9 a.m. for me. Montana, what time is it for you? It's like
7 a.m. 7 a.m.
God, the other direction. Oh, that's horrible. And Rob, it's 2 or 3 in the afternoon, isn't it for you? So
3 in the afternoon, yes. To check.
Yeah, so we're multicultural. So welcome to Analytics Coffee Club, and today is the Analytics Coffee Club swimsuit edition. So yeah, I was waiting to see whether you would go, "Oh my God." Just kidding. We're not ever going to do a swimsuit edition. That would be horrific. I'm sure you guys would look great, but yeah, we would lose a lot of viewers if I went in that direction. That would not be a good idea. Okay, so we've got some slides to talk about. We have things that we have to go to, unfortunately, so we don't get to just loquaciously hang around and talk for hours today. We do have a kind of agenda to get to. For those of you that are watching on other channels, I think we're going out to LinkedIn and a few other things as well. You can go to this QR code here. If you scan this with your phone, it will take you to our YouTube channel, our official YouTube channel. It's not, if you've subscribed to the YouTube channel before, it's not the same. For technical reasons, we've got a new YouTube channel. It's down at the bottom, or go to that QR code and scan it, and it will take you there. If you're watching on YouTube now and you've not already done it, if you can click on subscribe, that would be very useful. We won't know who you are. We can't spam you. We can't force you to buy things or anything like that. We won't even know who you are. We'll know roughly where you are in the country and in the world because the analytics allow that, but we won't be able to get any details from you. So it's completely safe. So if you don't feel like filling out the details on our registration thing, please do subscribe so that we get to actually make sure that you see the things we're talking about. Otherwise, it's just Rob and Montana and myself just sitting around looking a bit weird and Spot overseeing us. So there you go. Okay, so what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to hide this one because that's fine. And I'm going to share my screen. Let me just get the slideshow up. Presenter view, we need that because that's quite important. Can I put it over there? Yes, I think I can. I might move it back actually. No, I'm going to put it over there. Share my screen so that we can see the slides. And then I think we want to go down the edge like that so you can still see us. Bing! And hear us as well. And I'll move the YouTube sticker as well over. I'm going to do that from here, hopefully. There you go. Yeah, so the YouTube sticker's out of the way. Okay, so today it is, as we've said before, let me just full size this as well. I don't know why that doesn't do that automatically. It's YouTube, whatever you call it. Present slides. Yeah, present is part of Yellowfin, isn't it? Too many options for things now. Okay, so today is the Analytics Coffee Club. I notice it says the 14th of May. That's good. Someone's updated the slides. Learn the lingo, which is slightly terrifying. Sounds like a language lesson, but really it's because BI and analytics have their own kind of jargon in some ways. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about what those are. Just so you know, we are here every Thursday at the same time. So if you've caught us by accident, if you've gone, oh, what's this, and come along, we're here every Thursday at the same time. So, come along, regular guests. We won't always be the three of us. It'll probably be me hosting most of the time, but we're going to swap it up and have different people. We've got some people coming along. I think Exasol, we've got someone who's coming from Exasol at some point, and a few other partners and people like that. And the regular team, so to speak, are Stephen Ball, who isn't with us. He is watching remotely on YouTube, apparently. He's got something vital that he has to do. I don't know, make the coffee or something. Then Robert Jones is here. Rob. And Rob, you are pre-sales analyst. That's right, isn't it?
Solution architect, engineer.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Answer to everything, really.
Yeah, something, incredibly complicated that I always get wrong. Maria Luna is not here, but she is watching as well. She's off doing some other things today. She did say that what it was, but I forgot what it was. And then live with us still is Montana Mendy. Hello, Montana.
Hello. Solutions architect, engineer, Swiss Army knife, etc.
Fixer of the unbroken, yes, and
yes.
Fixer of the broken, exactly. Yes, I think that's an interesting role. And then there's myself, Ian Barker. I'm the developer advocate for Idera, actually specifically for Yellowfin and Embarcadero. And if you need to email me and complain to me about doing something horrible, or I've done something you like or whatever, my email address is at the bottom there. That's ian.barker@idera.com. And if you want to get hold of people in the presentation and get hold of their email address or speak to them or whatever, feel free to email me and I'll channel the request on as well, so that you've got a face and a name that you understand. You can contact if needs be. So that's who we are today. And sorry about the flashing because of the technology we're using. What are we going to talk about? We're probably not going to cover all of these, but we're going to talk about what is business intelligence. What do we mean by that? I mean, it sounds like something you would understand, but do you really understand it? So we'll explain what that term is. Dimensional modeling, which actually is a term I'm not familiar with. It sounds like, plus size people standing and posing in clothing or something like that, along with tiny frame people, dimensional modeling. I'm guessing it's not that. I think it's probably something a little bit more analytical. The BI tech stack, what is it and how does it work? A bit about governance and security. In other words, not getting in trouble with the law and making sure that your customers don't get in trouble with the law or get fined or whatever. And then we'll do a Q&A and a wrap up. And then we're on next week. So let's start off by talking about doing business intelligently or business intelligence. Which of you wants to talk to this about this kind of topic?
Probably if I kick off and then you can dive in and pick me up when I say something stupid. So we'll see how we go.
Asking capital questions here today.
I love kicking off business intelligence. It's a bit of a truism, and it can sound a bit trite, but I think it's genuinely fair to say that business intelligence is literally about doing business intelligently, which it's almost like, well, if you didn't do business intelligence, you'd be being a bit stupid, because what it is about is using the data that's available to you to make the best business decisions you can. And not doing that would seem like, well, you'd have to be crazy, wouldn't you? But it's surprising how many people take that view and or at least don't make that extra step. They have all this information available to them, and they just don't use it. And having worked in enterprise situations before, you can put together the best BI in the world and say, look, we've got all this lovely information. We've thought hard about how you should be using it to answer the questions that you have day to day. Put it in front of them, and they still ignore it. So it's not an absolute given that everybody takes the same view, but it's definitely demonstrable that by using analytics, using the data that's available to you, you can significantly change the performance of your business. And really what we're here to do here is to talk about what that means and how to make that happen for your business and for your customers. So at the bottom there, in the old days, we call this decision support. The old days being, when I started out in this game, which was about 30 years ago now. That's what IBM used to call it back in the day. And we had decision support software, and it was very expensive, and it ran on a mainframe. But it worked really well. We had some great customers, and I had a lot of fun building some of that software. But it was about helping you to use data to make your decisions. Yeah, I mean that's really where it all comes from.
I mean, for me, when I talk about BI and showing the information, the term I use to describe it is the truth. I say you're showing the truth, because at the end of the day, you can say they're facts, you can say they're data, you can say they're statistics, but really, as long as you've got them right, then what you're showing is the truth. And when you're running and really, intelligence is kind of a misnomer, because it is business truths. You're showing exactly where the status is of things that you're interested in. You know, how good are we doing, for example, profit-wise? How badly are we doing in terms of expenditure? How successful are we in Africa? You know, those kind of things are the things that you might be using BI for. And really what you're getting out of it is the truth of where you stand. You know, that I want to know the true facts, not varnished over, not propped up and made to look cool by marketing people or something like that. I want to know exactly where we are, because if we're doing badly in Africa, I need to know about it so my business doesn't go bust, you know, and expend money in that direction in a way that doesn't produce results. You know, in these days, every dollar, every pound, every euro has to count.
You're right. And that word truth you mentioned there, Ian, is one of, you've hit on something there, because that word truth comes up an awful lot in business intelligence. You know, so one of the mantras that we have is your single version of the truth, because one of the biggest problems that you can have in an enterprise context, particularly, is where actually you've got more than one BI system, or even just sometimes more than one BI analyst, and they come up with competing versions of the truth. And if you're not very careful, your board directors can go to their meetings and they spend most of the meeting discussing, well, whose data is actually right. Completely unproductive. They can't prove it one way or the other. So one of the key things for making your business intelligence successful is making sure that you do have one source of the truth. So it needs to be authoritative, and as a business, you need to make sure that you've got one team probably aligned for on the hook for providing the truth that everybody believes and uses. Otherwise, you've got real problems internally. You're going to have competing versions of it, and you won't make the right decisions that you're trying to make.
Yeah.
So like, where's the line between like BI and like plain old reporting? Was a question that was posed to me last week, and I was wanting to get your insights, Rob. I was going to actually message you this on Teams yesterday, but I'll just ask you now.
Between BI and what was the term you used there?
Plain old, like just plain old reporting.
Plain old reporting. Well, yeah. Plain old reporting is step one on this ladder that we've got about. It's described the Gartner Analytics ladder. It's a model that's been around for I'm going to guess, because I forgot to check, I think about 15 years now. But I really like it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and it definitely fits with my experience of how BI has unfolded over the decades, and not only how it's unfolded over the decades, but also how it typically unfolds when you try to start doing it in a business. So plain old reporting sits in that first category, the descriptive bit, where you just literally say, this is what happened in the business. So we sold this much last year, we paid this much to those businesses, whatever it was that happened in your business is just the fact, hopefully true, but unvarnished and flat. You can't interact with
typically it. Static as well. Typically it is a snapshot of a particular time, so that if they're doing plain old reporting, as we can use that term, it is generally old-fashioned in the sense that it's like you print it out on a printer, carry a piece of paper over like you did in the caveman days in the 1990s and go, here's my report. Or even you sent it around in one of those envelopes with all the little signatures on. Rob, you'll remember this, Montana. This is what people used to do in the old age days when we still rubbed sticks together to cook. And so they would have these little envelopes. I'm sure you probably know about them, but that was how BI really came about. That was what it was back in the day.
It did, and the funniest thing I can remember in that vein, Ian, was again when I was working at I'm going to name them. I doubt very much they'll be listening, but I used to work for a company called Waitrose, which is a supermarket chain in the UK, posh supermarkets in the UK. And when I joined them, and this was going back a fair while now, again about 30 years. we were implementing our first BI system, and of course the first thing that they did, those who were very keen on BI, they would print it out to show how engaged they were with this stuff, and they would print out reports. And the guy that used to, one of our best users in some respects, he actually, I'm not joking here, literally built a wall of the paper printouts of the reports. It was like feet off the ground, the paper printouts. I mean, we did try to explain to him, look, there's a database behind this. You don't need to print it because you can just ask the question again. But I think he got it by the end. But the wall took a bit of shifting.
It's like that scene in Office Space where he's got these reports, the TPS reports that he has to fill out, and he gets interviewed by the Bobs, which are the two management consultants, and they say, what do you think the problem is? He says, well, to be honest, I come in, try and slack off. I do this, I'd fill this report out. And I have 4 managers. And they're like, what? You've got 4 managers? Why? I said, I don't know. I don't know what they do, but I report to all these people. Well, back in the 80s and 90s, the standard way of looking busy was to own a clipboard. Because you could walk around with a clipboard and nobody ever questioned what you were doing because clearly you were busy, right? It's like, there it is. I've got my work. Well,
you also need like a lanyard and an ID badge too.
Yeah, exactly. You could then go and rob the whole place and nobody would question it. Well, it can't be him, right? He's got a lanyard, so yeah. But I think I think we've moved on nowadays. I think that there are still a lot of people that focus. In fact, just as we were on air, I've just had a message from someone who I know still does that kind of reporting. They are. They own the business that they are messaging me about, and I'm not going to call them out because I don't want to embarrass them. They are friends, but they are very much still doing things the old-fashioned way. So whenever they produce statistics about products that they create, which actually I used to write for them, they literally print it out, and they still run these reports. And then you're saying to them, you printed it out 3 weeks later, and this is a fast-moving product. If that information is practically useless, unless you know exactly what the trend is between the last time you printed something out, you have got absolutely no idea where you genuinely stand as a business in terms of, sales or returns or, support tickets and things like that. And Waitrose, as now you mentioned them, we'll make sure we definitely get you sued. Waitrose, I've worked in similar organizations myself, and those companies they are nowadays in the retail market is very sophisticated in terms of data, collection, maintenance, and reporting, and I'm sure nowadays they're horribly sophisticated and would go, Rob, you're talking about things from 30 years ago in terms of
absolutely.
This is like the day that the Big Bang occurred, kind of thing. So, and same with myself. I've been a developer for 40 plus years. So, I remember stuff when computers still were in a big room. But yeah, so I mean, going back to the 4 types of analytics, we talked about plain old reporting and descriptive, diagnostic, why did it happen, etc., those kind of things. Predictive, what will happen, and that's relatively important to, I think, almost everybody. If you're doing well today, are you going to be doing well next year? Are you going to be doing well at Christmas? If you've got a seasonal business like fruit farms, for example, very seasonal, and the way that they work it changes throughout the period. So when it's in the season where all the fruit is being harvested, there's one type of activity for a fruit organization, like Geest, for example, was a customer of mine years ago. They do bananas. They're very famous in the UK for basically probably every banana you get is from Geest. But so for some part of the year, they'll actually be getting fruit, and for the other part of the year, they're storing fruit. And it's a whole different practice. But if your diagnostics can't cope with that kind of change in behavior, it's also a problem as well, because a seasonal business is weird. Like Waitrose probably make unless my knowledge of the UK is very outdated, I bet they make a ton of money at Christmas, because everybody, even if they don't normally shop at Waitrose, and Marks and Spencer being a similar brand, people will go there at Christmas because they have a very good reputation for producing quality stuff. It's like not like your regular grocery store, and I'm not going to name the chains, but the ones I mean. The ones that are a little bit kind of down market. But Waitrose and Marks and Spencer or Marks and Sparks, is considered upmarket. So people would tend to spend a little bit more money because their prices are a little bit higher than your average store. So they have a big kind of hockey stick, in terms of, inverted hockey stick in terms of their profits, the goods that they're selling and stuff like that. Again, it's diagnostic. How did we do last year? What did we do wrong? Now this year, looking forward to predictive analysis, where are we going to be, and how are we going to get there? I mean, Montana, that's I mean, I know we're talking about British grocery stores and things like that, but there are probably, I'm guessing, similar customers that you've worked with that have got, that kind of, analysis, diagnostic, predictive, they're quite important as well. And what sort of, involvement have you had in that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think I've worked with a lot of people in that industry, but what I've noticed in that industry, it's like a lot of the organizations stall at descriptive, and they never make it to predictive or prescriptive, and that's like a big concern for people that are not using BI. They can get the description, but never predictive or prescriptive.
Yeah, I mean,
something I've noticed.
What is it about Yellowfin that you think is helpful with, those two bits that they're not really, executing on?
Well, I should perhaps I'll say what I've got to say on this one, because predictive analytics is really complicated. Having worked in the retail space, I mean, it's particularly complicated in retail for some of the reasons that you talked about, where seasonality is just the start of the complications.
Yeah.
But you've got all sorts of concepts,
TV shows,
and products have been on TV recently. Different cook shows, they make a huge difference. So the key thing there, that the consequence of that is that you don't normally use an off-the-shelf BI tool like Yellowfin to do the predictive part of your analytics. You will complement your BI tools with more specialist tools that really have the capacity to deal with all the different factors that come to play. But what you can do is take the output from those tools and then present it using things like Yellowfin. So you can have the forecasts for the next, the next 6 months going ahead or something. That would be fairly typical for a large retailer, because some products have to be bought a long way in advance. And so in some parts of the business, they'll look at at the prediction charts going that far out. They'll look at the orders that have already been placed, sometimes that far out, and they'll be comparing, the amount that they've ordered with the amount that they're predicting to sell, and they'll be then looking at the deltas on that in light of changing. Gosh, the weather's playing a role in the background there. What's that rumble about? That also plays a factor, but not 6 months out, because the predictions aren't that good. But the point
actually, in the USA it can do, because we are particularly affected by El Nino and La Nina.
Yes.
And speaking of someone who lives in the south of the United States, right now the weather's weird. In Texas, the local TV weather guys are very important around about this time of year, because it's tornado season. And funny enough, I have a company that I wrote some software for, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that, and they are very much interested in what La Nina and El Nino would do, because certain types of effect where the sea warms up, which is what La Nina is, can affect the severity of the storms. And right now, we're in a pattern where the storms are extremely severe. And I'm talking hailstones that size. And they're not rare, they're common in Texas. Once or twice a year minimum, we get a storm where the hailstones are baseball size, which, if you're not sure what that is, if you're British or Spanish or something like that, it's the size of a tennis ball or the size of something like an orange that you'd hold in your hand. That's coming down at terminal velocity out of the clouds, hits your roof, smashes your roof up. Now, the customer that I had was a roofing inspector company. Their job is to go after a storm, go up on the roof on behalf of the insurance companies and decide whether your damage is bad enough that you need a new roof. 9 times out of 10, if they have a hailstorm, it's a problem. So they have data. They want to know, is it going to be a really bad La Nina year? The storm's going to be particularly brutal with the hail. If it's an El Nino, which is a kind of decreasing thing, then what happens is you have more snow and ice and stuff like that. Now in Dallas, we don't get a lot of snow, maybe for 2 days. We joke that our winter is 2 days, but what we do get are ice storms. And those ice storms are actually particularly devastating because when they hit the power lines, which are suspended from poles, the weight of the ice pulls the power lines down and we get power cuts. So again, being able to predict or analyze that information is a type of business intelligence. It's a business analytics thing. And, this guy, I wrote some analytics software for him so that he could actually analyze weather trends and things like that and actually be able to say, right, I need to be, because of this report I've got, I need to be driving to Oklahoma, because he was a certified inspector in a few states. The way that the United States works is you don't get one license that covers you for every, all 50 states. It is you are licensed for particular states. But that's an example there of someone who uses business analytics to actually generate new business, because he can know there was a similar storm in 1999 and 10,000 people had damaged roofs. Therefore, it's worth it for him. Even if he gets 1% of those roofs to inspect and write off, he gets money from the insurance company and from the people that refit the roof. It's just how it works. So it's a weird thing. The weather in the United States is a horror story.
Bizarre.
And yeah, it's weird, right? I mean,
it's like why can't it be so nice in California and then you go to Texas and it's just like a whirlwind every day? I think it's the only
we
place
don't understand California because it all just seems to be fruit everywhere. That's it.
Right.
And if you're in that world where you need to take account of that really complex sort of predictive environment, then I think the important thing to note is that you're going to need some additional tools that specialize in doing that kind of heavyweight prediction. And if you then want to go that extra mile and really get to the last rung on that ladder, the prescriptive piece, which is saying, right, okay, we think we know what's going to happen. You never really necessarily know what's going to happen, but at least if you think you know what's going to happen, you say, well, what should we do about that then? And that's where you can start to apply business rules and say, well, in this circumstance, this is what we're going to recommend you do. And that might be as simple as saying, well, if we predict that we're going to sell that many tins of beans in November, then just to be on the safe side, we ought to add a safety margin of, say, maybe 5% on top of that, and therefore we'll order 5% more than we think we're going to sell. And that's a really simple rule that you would put in. So, but you could build that
in Yellowfin. Is that what you're saying?
You could do that last piece in Yellowfin. So the bit that says, right, we'll run an external model to generate the predictions, and then in Yellowfin we can produce the report that goes, by product. They'll say, well, I'm going to sell that much, and therefore I'll apply the uplift, and that uplift level, that percentage might be different for each product category. You can store that in another table in your database and build a report that then says, right, this is what I'm going to order for that product for that month, and run that off, and someone can action it. And in Yellowfin, if you're building in Yellowfin, the nice thing is that you can go the extra step, and you can have things like an action button in there which says, right, place the order for this product. And if you've got then a back-end system that will take that code, you could take that information, both the product code and potentially the order level, and actually create the order. It's not that Yellowfin obviously creates the order, but it can drive a REST API, for example, passing in the data that's in your report.
I didn't know that either. I did not know that. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. So you can actually make Yellowfin cooperate with other pieces of software as well. So
absolutely, yes.
Saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's an example of what we mean by embedding analytics. So, it can mean embedding analytics. That's another topic. It's probably on one of the slides, but we'll touch on it now, which is that you can think of it two ways. And the really simple way of looking at it, it's about saying, right, take a report from Yellowfin and present it in the context of your page within some software application that isn't only about analytics. It might do all sorts of things, but you want a graph on your page. You can embed a graph, and that's one kind of embedding. But then more importantly, you say, well, why am I embedding it? And that's more about saying, right, what is the what is the workflow that the user of that application is trying to carry out, and thinking about, well, what you're really doing is giving them the information that they need to carry out that workflow more effectively by embedding analytics in their workflow. And that's what Yellowfin is all about.
And you can even embed like certain type of graphs too, e.g. fusion charts. Yeah,
all kinds of things. Should we move on to the next slide, or we're going to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, really, the thing that struck me about Yellowfin, because coming into it kind of late, really, from a developer's point of view, was how easy it was to embed. I mean, it was literally simple to do. Once you got a little bit of mechanics behind it, embedding it into any kind of app was actually quite straightforward. And what I would expect, if someone is like an independent software vendor and they've got their own product, I would say that the real beauty for them here is they can put it in their product with minimum effort, and they've got all this stuff ready to go. Yellowfin's done all the hard work, and they can white label it so it looks like their own. If they're saying, well, no, we don't want to have anything about Yellowfin in there, we want to make it look like Ian Barker Soft or whatever it is. Well, with the white labeling, that's exactly what they're going to do. And in fact, in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to do a whole session about embedding as well.
Yes.
Whether we've mentioned that, but we're going to talk about embedding a lot more, because it's just so easy. And it's, if you are struggling, as an independent software vendor, you're thinking, what more things can we add to get our customers to retain our customers and make sure they continue the subscription? If you're doing a software, as a service model, SaaS, software as a service. Anyway, one of them acronyms. If you're doing that, with the subscription, here's a retention thing for you. Easy to do. Embed it, off you go. It's minimal effort in terms of software development for your developers. And you had a whole raft of features ready to go. Why do it yourself? Why do it the hard way when we've done all the hard work for you in Yellowfin? So yeah, it's a cool thing. Dimensional modeling, which is like the plus size models, as I said earlier on, but I think we're talking about something completely different. Who wants to tell me what you mean?
So, I mean, I guess the first thing to observe is that while it is true that embedding your reports and charts in an application is pretty easy to do, that is certainly true. Actually getting to the point where you're ready to start making the reports and so on, there is some work to be done there. How much work will depend, obviously, how far you are already along that ladder, and where you're starting from. I mentioned that if you're coming at this completely cold and you've never done any business intelligence before, you will almost certainly start with that first rung of the ladder. That it's a descriptive analytics, where you're just looking at what data you've got. That's the starting point for everybody. You say, well, okay, I've got this process going. What do I know about it? What data do I have? And you'll take a look at it. But as soon as you start to want to ask questions, that's really the starting point. The dimensional modeling is the way of allowing you to ask the questions that you want to ask. So, you sit down with your business users typically and say, well, what questions do you want to be able to answer? If you're in retail, it's going to be, well, how much product did I sell? When did I sell it? What did I sell in that store last week? How much am I going to sell next month? And you start going through it and picking out a model which says, what are the key terms in there? So product, when, well, that's the time dimension, as we're saying. So product and time are two of the important dimensions of the problem. So using that sort of general language, that's what we mean here. It's dimensions of the problem. So the dimensions are the things that you're going to want to analyze by. So if we talk about sales, I want to analyze sales by time. I want to analyze sales by store location, or product category, or product, or all those sorts of things you can run. So that's the important thing about it. So dimensions are the things you want to analyze by. So maybe let's skip to the next slide.
Well, there's a good phrase that I use when people are asking me about product, development, and when they're planning out their product, and that is, if you want good answers, ask good questions.
Yeah.
So if you go in and you don't understand your data and you just think it's magically going to work, then you're going to get magical rubbish. That's the problem. That we can Yellowfin, with it, especially with its natural language query, AI enabled. It's optional. You don't have to have it, but if you want to be able to ask it questions and it have AI help you get those answers, you do need to actually have some idea of the questions you're asking. It's you always get people say, oh, I want to develop an app. And I go, great, because they've learned I'm a software developer and a developer advocate, and I go, okay, well, what kind of app do you want? Oh, I don't know. I just think well, that's that's absolutely pointless. You've got to have some idea of what you want to end up with. And it's the same with as you would say, dimensional modeling. You've got to have some idea of the questions, yes, but also the answers that you're hoping to get out of this. Because if you want those good answers, you do have to ask the questions in the right way with the right dimensions and qualities. It's no good saying, well, I want to know how much we sold every quarter, for example, of particular items, and then I want them spread out so I know this item's our bestseller, this item's the second bestseller. And okay, so what you're saying there is that the dimensions you're looking for are number of sales based on the number of products. So you need to understand how to extrapolate the products out, the time and date of those sales, so that you can then aggregate them on that date and time. And then whatever other dimensions you want on your chart or your graph, embedded in a story, something like that. You've got to understand what it is that you want, and sometimes that's the kind of blocking point for people, because they don't know what they want. They've got an idea, but they're not entirely sure, and that's what you guys come in for, really, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of what you do, is help them get to the point where they get a better idea of the sanity of the question that they're asking or not. I mean, Montana in particular is that kind of really where you're coming from, isn't it? That's sort of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a question for Rob. What I think next slide will be supermarket example, but like, how would you model something messier than groceries? Like maybe a subscription service?
Yeah.
You start the same way. I mean, well, it depends what you mean by that. So the first thing in any business is to go to the business users and say, right, what questions are you trying to answer? And what you're aiming to produce is what I would call a set of use cases. Same as if you're a product manager developing the application, you're saying, right, as a role name, so as a product manager, if it is retail, but in any business, I want to view whatever it is you're making or selling or producing by whatever it is you want to analyze it by. And then the next bit's important, in order to. So, that then gives you clues to, right, how you're going to present the data and where you might want to go next. So in order to is going to give you a clue maybe as to how you might want to drill further into the data, or maybe what follow-up reports you might want to navigate to in order to complete the workflow. So yeah, it's really important to understand what you want to see and what you want to do with that information, because that will affect how best to present it. And the events that you want to report on in any kind of retail is going to be sales events for sure, but there's also things like the orders you've placed, the stock you've received if it's a physical business. But you'll also look at things like maybe customer sign-ups, customer churn. So all of these sort of events. So a new customer signed up, a customer unsubscribed. You might have manufactured events, which is, well, the customer hasn't interacted with the platform within a certain window. You might then choose to call that a customer drop-off or whatever you want to call it.
I'll tell you a very good use, an example, and I'm going to base this on the United States. Even though I've got an obvious British accent, I've lived here for 17 years now, so I'm more like American most of the time than I'm British. But it applies to European markets. Different European countries are quite different, but there's a generic thing. Over here, Kroger, for example, is a very popular grocery store. It's your everyman grocery store. It's a bit like Tesco, for example, in the UK. And they do a couple of interesting things that I know as an analyst that it's data collection. And one is the loyalty card. If you have your loyalty card, you can either type in your phone number and they match it to you that way, or you've got it on an app and they scan it and it's got a QR code, which doesn't always work. And I always tell them how to use their barcode scanner properly because they never know how to do it. But and in fact, I even have one down here on my desk. But what they do is, the other thing they do is they have a thing called Kroger Pay. And what that allows you to do is actually pay for your goods and services using, again, a QR code that changes every time you use it, but it's linked directly to your card, your debit card, or your bank account, however you do it.
Yep.
But the interesting thing about that, and I know this based on some reports I saw from Kroger at an event, is that they are using that data to get the best picture they can of you. And it goes directly into the business intelligence, because they will then offer me, and this is something that people don't realize when they get it through the mail, for example, they will offer coupons, and they tend to do them electronically now, but they'll send you a letter with a fold out thing with a bunch of coupons on, and Tesco used to do this as well. And it's for the stuff I want. And they are doing that as a loss leader, because they know, for example, it's June coming up. Here's your free bottle of orange juice, like pure orange or whatever. Here's your free loaf of bread or something like that. And that is all down to BI, and it's all down to them understanding me as an individual. So they print those coupons. Each person's coupons are different. Each letter that you get in the mail is completely tailored to you. And that's what BI can do for you, is you can incentivize the person directly. They do it via email as well. I'm sure that, I don't remember the last time I ever got anything in the mail from them, but they certainly send out coupons via email. This is what BI can do for them. It's how they weaponize the data that they've got on you in a positive way. It's almost like a love bomb. They're attacking you and making you want to come back to Kroger, but they're doing it by being nice to you and giving you a free bottle of orange, or a coupon for something you definitely buy, because they know you buy it because of your loyalty card and your payment thing that you paid with. Because they can, Kroger Pay and Walmart do it as well. They can track it directly back to your customer profile. By using Kroger Pay, every time you do that, you're agreeing to them capturing that data.
I mean, that certainly does happen, and it still happens here as well. It used to drive me nuts when they used to do that in marketing at Waitrose, because I always argued that I used to argue it was a really poor use of marketing spend, because actually I was going in there anyway. I mean, when they sent me, I don't mind if they want to give me money.
No. I tell you now.
Let me explain why.
You will buy stuff you didn't mean to buy. How many times you go in the grocery store for one thing? I can't go into Best Buy without buying,
because back then I was shopping every week anyway. And the point is, they were missing out on the important insight, which was not give me money off what I'm going to buy anyway. Actually give me money off something I would quite like to buy, but thought was a little bit too expensive for me, because if I like it, I'm going to keep buying that more expensive product. And how that was very rare, but perfectly doable. I think they do a bit more of that now, but it's an example of the kind of thing the more sophisticated question you can ask of the data. It's like, well, okay, they like that product category, they're shopping the mid tier. What would it take to push them into the next tier? And sometimes if you've got a great product, it's getting them to try it. So give them a coupon for that.
There's a really good book. There's a really good book I've been reading called The Everything War, and it's about Amazon. And I can't speak for the truth of it. I mean, it's a book and it's out there. So if it's wrong, I'm sure Amazon will sue them into the dark ages. But it's very, very interesting, because they talk about the Amazon's own label stuff. Because if you buy, a phone case, okay, you can buy that. Lots of Chinese manufacturers make these. They know what the model is before the model's released. They obviously, get the information. When this phone comes out, there will be a case available for it, but actually there'll be 1,000 cases available for it. And Fulfilled by Amazon makes a certain amount of money, but what they do is, and it's illegal, and they've actually been caught out, and now they claim they don't do it, is they would look at how much money they make off of the people that are selling these cases, for example, or a table, or this video game console. And they would then find a way of creating their own label version of it, which gave them a higher margin. Or when you go to search for something like a life-size Spock cutout, they will offer, or they used to, in the search, ordered internally by the profit margin of the things that they gave. So if 6 people make Spock, they don't necessarily offer you the cheapest spot. Initially in the search, they will offer you the one that makes them the most profit margin. Now that is very underhand, I think, personally. I'm not speaking on behalf of Yellowfin here, but to offer you something that makes them more money but isn't a benefit to me is actually counterproductive to what their stated aims are. They say they're all about the customer, and I believe them. I believe that Amazon have become successful because they gave people what they want. I can order, if this phone case breaks, I can have it here this afternoon. My daughter and her husband both drive for Amazon, so it's a big thing. But that is business intelligence used actually for the benefit of the company. Now other people could do that as well. They could work out, what makes us the most profit margin, and then when you're going to sell something, you're going to stack those in retail. You're going to have those on the end of the aisles, because everybody knows the stuff on the end of the aisles looks like a bargain. But actually, if you look very carefully, you'll find that cereal box that is on offer at the end of the aisle, actually, there are cheaper versions of similar things on the bottom shelf or on the top shelf, because people tend to only scan. There's whole psychology about these things, and that is business intelligence plus. That's where you go beyond. That's business psychology, I'm guessing.
And in terms of the lingo that we're talking about here, the that sorting of the results in your Amazon site, that's an example of a fairly subtle form of prescriptive analytics, because you're encouraging the customer to go make a particular purchase just by putting it at the top of the list. You're not insisting they do. I mean, they can choose one, they can scroll down and look at one further down, but you're certainly encouraging them to look for the one that comes out on the top, giving them a nudge in the direction you want. And if it's sensible business to go for the one that's going to make the most margin, probably, as long as you don't get called out for it. But
everybody likes profit. At the end of the day, you have to remember, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we have to end a little bit earlier today, but we're back in big size now. I think it's important to understand that we're on the side of the business that's producing whatever results they are. If Amazon became a Yellowfin customer, then we would support Amazon, and we're not making a judgment about how you use that data. We're making a judgment on how to help you use that data, and really, the role of both you guys is, and we're going to come back to the topics here another time, but it's about making sure that the dimensions of the data and all the questions that they want to ask and all the answers they want to get out of it are correct. And when we do the future webinar, we're going to talk a lot about embedding and show people it's really easy to do. We're also going to, in the next webinar, we're going to show the product as well, because obviously we've just been talking about slides and lots of things about supermarkets and grocery stores and things like that. But I think that one of the compelling things about Yellowfin is actually seeing what it can come up with, because it is, you mentioned it's, some elements are difficult to get right. I personally sat down with it for a few hours, and within a couple of hours, I had it working the way I wanted. I was getting questions out of the data, and I mean, I am an expert at that kind of stuff anyway, but I was getting questions out of the data and producing meaningful examples in a couple of hours. Now, that's completely different to actually having it, in your business and using it for, mass reporting to, the chairman of the board or something, whoever it is. But it wasn't difficult. I didn't find it difficult. But what happened after I'd done that was, the more I learned about Yellowfin, the more I realized how much it does. It is phenomenally powerful, and the data connections, even through things like Exasol and the others as well, it's remarkable. There isn't anything you can't do, I don't think, in terms of connecting the data, warehousing the data, the security of it, the fact that it's got a compliance built in from the ground up. The embedding, which we're going to show, is really easy to do. The power of stories, the power of present, and all those other things is it blows me away. Really, I'm very, I can't sit here and talk about a product unless I believe in it. I really believe in Yellowfin. I think it's a great product. And next time
you're right, Ian, and I think it's definitely getting easier, because Yellowfin for one product, and competitors to some extent as well, are getting better at suggesting what you might want to do with the data. So you can share a data set with it, and if you tell it what you're trying to achieve, it's getting quite good with the help from AI models and so on, suggesting what reports you actually ought to present to your users to get the right results that you're looking for. So I mean, that's something where in the past you would have had to figure that out entirely yourself. Now the tool can give you a bit more help than it used to in the past, and it's getting pretty smart at that. But I think that the point there is that you would have to expect several iterations of that going around the loop. You would probably want to deliver that and see what happens. If you put that report in front of people, does that actually drive the business outcomes you're looking for? And there's a kind of second order effect certainly within an enterprise context of saying, right, am I getting the business outcomes I'm looking for? And if not, what am I going to do about it? And actually tracking the effect, maybe of putting different versions of the report in front of people and seeing, how that affects the outcomes. So it becomes almost a bit incestuous, eating your own output and presenting it back again. But it's all part of the fun. Is you can't manage what you don't measure. So measure everything and see what the effect is on your business.
Okay. Well, I have a hard stop, unfortunately. I have something else that I've got to go to. It's one of those things where, Ian, you have to be at this. I'm like, really? But I hope everybody enjoyed today's Analytics Coffee Club swimsuit edition. I'm going to come up with a different title every week. Maybe we'll have to have backgrounds with Waikiki Beach or something like that, and all look very relaxed one time. Or maybe we'll do an Edo edition where we all dress up in samurai costumes or something like that as well. But
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah, come on, it's got to be done, hasn't it? It's fun. Yes. But anyway, that's it from us this week. We're back again next week at the same time. As I said before, if you're watching on YouTube, click on that subscribe button. We don't get any awards. We don't get any trophies. None of us get any money for it, or even a thanks, I think. But if you click on that, how can I point to it? Yeah. I'll point to Rob like that. But if you click on the use your phone and click on the QR code, that'll take you directly to the YouTube channel as well if you're watching us on another form. But we'll be back every time, and you'll get a notification from us saying, hey, we're going live. Thank you to my two guests or co-presenters, however you want to do it. Rob Jones, thank you. And also Montana, great stuff. Next time we're going to show Yellowfin doing some things and go ooh and ah and lots of exciting things as Montana. And Montana, you'll have to do it under Linux or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
People don't know this, but he is the biggest Linux geek on the planet. I think.
Yeah,
he actually makes Linus Torvalds look like a slacker. So
I do. All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See you, everyone.